very little of her evidence will be the subject of an application for private session, and I'll turn to that in just a second. But first, in light of the problems this morning, does the Chamber still want to deal with administrative matters in the third session, or given the real priority of ensuring that this witness is finished before the long Easter break, might it be preferable to put administration back to the end of her evidence tomorrow?
Yes, we will do that, and so that everyone knows the position. And I might not have made myself clear yesterday when I was addressing you on the length of submissions from the prosecution. What I have in mind is that we should begin with the 92 bis witnesses,
Certainly.
then the FOCHA transcript witnesses, and only finally get on to the matters as far as time and disclosure are concerned. If we deal with them in that way, at least we will deal with those matters which we ought to.
Certainly, and the other matters are subject to written motions in any event. Before the witness comes in, and this may be a policy that the court would prefer with all witnesses where there's any application for private session, I identify the limited amount of material that she would want in private session. Are we presently in private session?
We're in open session, Your Honours.
Maybe go into private session for these purposes. (129), paragraphs 1 and 2, Your Honour. Is it right that you worked in 1993 for the Party of Serbian Unity, not out of political affiliation, but because it was a well-paid job?
Yes, that's right.
Was your work initially limited to election matters, there being no war activities concerned?
Yes?
Did you have contact with the man Arkan?
Yes, I did during the election campaign, yes.
Were there also some members of his Tigers unit that worked in the same office as you?
Yes, because most of them who were in the Serbian Volunteer Guards during the election campaign were given different things to do within the party.
In the autumn of 1994, did you start to work at the headquarters of the SSJ and SDG in Belgrade?
Yes.
Can you give the expansion of both those titles, SSJ being?
SSJ is the Party of Serbian Unity, and the SDG is the Serbian Volunteer Guard.
Also known as?
The Tigers.
Did your work bring you into regular and close contact with Arkan, his office being one floor removed from yours, but he tasking you, giving you tasks as well as many other people every day, or several other people every day?
Yes. I would see him every day. And most of the day he would spend at the headquarters of the SDG, the Serbian Volunteer Guards. So we often saw each other.
Paragraph 6, did you, perhaps along with others, take phone calls for Arkan?
Yes?
And did he have a secretary?
Yes, he did. He had a secretary, his own personal secretary.
And was the placing and receiving of calls done by you and others through that secretary?
Sometimes I myself would answer the phone, the incoming telephone calls, and sometimes it would be his secretary, and then she would pass the line on to him.
Did you keep a diary?
Yes, I did. It was my diary of daily duties, my agenda for today, what duties I had on each particular day.
The first extract from your diary we'll look at is tab 2 of Exhibit 432, please. It'll come up on your screen if it's not there already. What, as a matter of fact, is this?
This is the stamp of the former commander, the late commander of the Serbian Volunteer Guard, Željko Ražnjatović, which I used when I had to write a letter in his name, an answer, a response to somebody, or give approval for something, that kind of thing.
Exhibit 391, tab 7, please. This exhibit's already been looked at. What do you see on the bottom right-hand part of that document?
What I can see there is the signature of the commander, Željko Ražnjatović Arkan, and he signed that in Erdut, which means that it is the same signature, except for the fact that this is written in his own hand, his own personal signature.
Yep. Paragraph 10. On what date was the group known as the Tigers established, and where?
The group was established. The date at which the Serbian National Guard was formed is taken to be the 11th of October, 1990. And the place of its establishment, the establishment of the Guards, is the monastery of Pokajnica, a monastery near Belgrade.
And was that date, the 11th of October, celebrated every year since then, and a certain number of years, as the date of the anniversary of the foundation?
Yes, that's right. It was celebrated every year. Sometimes the celebrations would be held in Erdut and sometimes in the monastery of Pokajnica itself, depending on where the Guards were at that time.
How many men initially took the oath appropriate to that group, and then name some of those initial ones that you can now recall?
There were about 10 of them. However, or rather, first of all, there was Željko Ražnjatović Arkan, then there was Nebojša Đorđević, nicknamed Šuca. Then there was Nenad Marković, also known as Šicko, Sasha Pavlović, also known as Cvrko, and Dragan Petrović, also known as Kajman, and others.
Tab 3, please, of our exhibit 432 is a photograph.
On this photograph, we see Nebojša Đorđević, aka Šuca.
Perhaps it can go on the overhead projector, as it hasn't found its way into the computerized system. she's happy. I have to press a different button then. I won't take time on it. We'll come back to the photograph in a minute when the system's back in its normal operation. Can we turn then to tab 4, which again I think is not on the computerized system. The Chamber may wish to look at that. Can you tell us, please, witness 129, what this list is and how it's been composed?
This list contains the names of the members of the Serbian Volunteer Guards. Then we have the names of the Red Berets. When I say Red Berets, I mean the special unit of the State Security Service.
Very well. Did you compose this list yourself? Was it provided to you? Explain, please.
I compiled the list myself with the names of the people that I would see or hear about during my work in the SDG, the Serbian Volunteer Guards. So when I was going about my daily duties.
The court will see on the first sheet names with which it will perhaps already be familiar in part, such as Veliki, looking at the third column, Veliki Rambo, and further down, Mali Rambo. Over the page, third entry, Zhika Senegorac. Fourth from the bottom, Legia. Next sheet, 3 up from the bottom, Kaiman, to whom there will be further reference, Arkan himself at the bottom. And then on the last, the next sheet, 4 up from the bottom, Frankie, and on the last sheet, 3 up from the bottom, Legia. I'm alerted by oaths and invited to draw your attention on
Help us with that Legia name.
There's an explanation here.
It hasn't been clear, but it appears he's got 2 names.
Can you help us, please, witness 129, with the nickname Legia? To whom was that associated?
Legia relates to Milorad Ulemek or Milorad Lukovic. His real surname was Ulemek. However, as he had fled from the Foreign Legion, during 1994, on the 3rd of September, in fact, when he married, he took his wife's surname, which was Lukovic. So it's one and the same person, but he goes by 2 different surnames.
The intercept.
Microphone, please, Mr. Nice.
My apologies. We're now looking at the photograph, witness 129. Please tell us who is shown.
On this photograph, we see Nebojša Đorđević, nicknamed Šuca, one of the founders of the Serbian Volunteer Guard.
Are you able to identify any of the others in the background?
No, I can't say.
Guard seems to have been known, is this right, as the Volunteer Guard, but also as the National Guard. Have I got that right?
No. This guard was only known as the Serbian Volunteer Guard, the SDG, or the Tigers, the Srpska Dobrovoljačka Garda.
So any reference to the National Guard is to something else, is that right?
Yes.
I understand that there may be problems with the playing of the intercepts, which will mean we'll have to return to those later. I'll just check with the technical booth whether there is a problem. And Your Honour, while we're waiting for information on the state of the technical booth or its ability to deal with the intercepts, I'm also asked to draw to your attention on that last tab, the list on page 1, the 5th entry, which is Raja Božović, as a name that's going to be referred to. On the 3rd sheet, the 3rd entry, Vaso Miovic. The 6th entry, Sasha Pavlovich. And on the next sheet, in the middle of the page, Mladen Šarac. And then the two Ulemets that we've already dealt with. No intercepts? Right. Apparently, Your Honour, there's no audio coming out of the intercepts, so that we hope that can be remedied over the break. And although it will enforce some discontinuity on the evidence, I'm sure that we can fit those intercepts in when we come to them at a later stage. In your summary, therefore, you'd be good enough to go to paragraph 18. Having looked at the list we have, witness 129, Crkvo and Shitsko. Can you tell us a little about them, please?
Shitsko and Crkvo, in addition to being the founders of the Guards, were wounded in 1991 in Tenja, which is eastern Slavonia. After that, they were not able to go to the front anymore, so that their duties linked to the SDG, the Serbian Volunteer Guard, was at the headquarters in Ljutice Bogdana Street number 1. And I would meet them on a daily basis. I would come into them, and Shitsko was in charge of analysis.
Did they speak to you of their experiences with the Tigers on operational duty? And if so, where did they tell you that they had been engaged?
They spoke about all the operations in eastern Slavonia in 1991. They did not speak about how the operations evolved themselves, but they said where they were, such as Tenja, Borovo Selo, Mirkovci, the Tenski Antunovac, and all the smaller places in eastern Slavonia, with the exception of Vukovar. They would always say that the Guard was never in Vukovar.
Did they tell you anything about activities in Bosnia or the Krajina?
Yes, they did. They spoke about that too, about Bosnia, but they spoke about Bosnia and Krajina, as did Arkan and some of the other members who would happen to be at the headquarters of the SDG. And they would also talk about Bijeljina, Zvornik, Brčko. That was in the course of 1992. And Krajina in January and February of 1993.
What detail did they provide you of what they'd done?
As far as Bijeljina is concerned, Arkan himself said he had gone at the invitation of Biljana Plavšić to assist the Serb people in Republika Srpska, and that their assignment was to disarm the Muslims, especially in the village of Janja, which is near Bijeljina, next to Bijeljina.
This is dealt with at paragraph 62, but I take it now for speed. When he told you that, did he say who was in charge of the Bijeljina operation?
You mean Arkan?
Yes.
He didn't say who was in charge, but he did say that he defended Bijeljina with Mauser. That is to say, Major Mauser, who was also at the beginning in the Serbian Volunteer Guard, the SDG, and then he went on to form the Panther unit later on.
Was there somebody called Sobe, or I think it's Sobe, first name Slobodan, whose last name wasn't known, but his code name was Sobe, who was also involved?
Yes. In all those operations, he was in them all, and later on he was in Brčko, or rather Čelići, which is a place near Brčko where Tsobe was wounded. And he talked about these operations because he worked in a bakery, so we bumped into each other every day.
Since you've already told us about involvement in Bijeljina, Zvornik and Brčko, as described by Arkan and others, paragraph 61, on whose orders, as you were informed, were the Tigers working when they went to these various places?
Could you repeat that question, please? I don't think I understood it properly.
My mistake. These early operations in Bijeljina, Zvornik and Brčko, who gave the order that they should go and work there?
Arcan would always say that without orders from the DB, the state security, the Tigers were not deployed anywhere.
Thank you. Well, I'm told that the intercepts are now available to us. Can we go back then to paragraph 13? There are a couple of intercepts to play, and although sometimes we deal with it by transcripts alone, I think the total of somewhere up to about 9 minutes may be worth having in full on this occasion. If we decide that it's not, or if it seems to be unduly wearisome, we can proceed by way of the transcript. The first intercept is to be found transcribed at your tab 5, and I'd ask the witness to have before her a transcript in whichever language she finds most convenient, but probably the BCS, and we'll follow it in the English.
Ready?
Yep, yes please.
Molim vas, samo malo.
Dobro jutro, izvolite.
Dobro jutro. Biljana Plašić je na telefonu. Molim vas, je li Željko tam?
Nije on trenutno ustao, tu je gospodin Rus.
Aha.
Može on?
Pa može, dajte ga na telefon.
Yes, put him through, please.
Halo?
Da? Dobro jutro.
Dobro jutro, moje veliko poštovanje, gospođo.
Pa, kako
Kako?
ste?
Posilni od gospodina komandanta.
Znam ja vas, znam ja
Da li
vas.
se spreman da prisustujemo podizanju zastave?
A podizanje zastave, neću vas ja dugo zadržati.
Ne, ni u kom slučaju, samo izvolite.
Samo da vas pitam, Željka nema, jel?
Pa znate šta, ja bih vas najiskrenije zamolio da budete samo toliko ljubazni, ako možete da mi kažete kada si ponovo nazvali,
Da.
znam da ga zovem i
Ma,
da budem
znate
jako
zašto? Ja sam
Jasno je Lego, bio je na terenu i...
A, da. Dobro, nemojte ništa onda. Evo, o čem se radi. Ja sam ovdje se vratila u onu moju bazu, odakle sam ja.
Čekajte, dobro.
Da, ali još nisam dok će stigla, jedna mala relacija je blokirana, ali sam htjela, samo ga pitajte, u principu, ako bi zvali da se dođe ovdje, bil sam mogla.
Čujte, gospođo.
Pa ću ja
Baš
otpočet...
nemam toliko ovlašćenja da govorim u njegovo ime, znate?
Normalno.
Ali ću u svakom slučaju, to ću odmah da mu prenesem ovu vašu poruku.
Da, prenesite da vam kažem, pa ja kad budem u svom stanu, ja ću onda
Da ga
s njim... Jeste, ali onda neću pitat ovo, nego ću samo pitati hoćete li donijeti onu robu ako možete.
Jasno.
Jel tako?
Jasno, bravo, pametno.
Tako.
Čujte, gospođo,
Molim.
ako ste vi u mogućnosti da nazovete, samo da vidim koliko je sad sati, evo 8 sati.
Da.
Ako ste u mogućnosti da ga nazovete za jedno 2 sata, ja ću da mu kažem da
Dobro.
jedno sat vremena ili...
Dobro, u redu. Dobro, pozdravite.
Mnogo žao što je sad takva situacija, ali
Jao, strašno.
nije ustao. Znate, on baš uvijek prisutuje podizanje zastave.
A, da.
Jako je kasno.
Aha. Dobro, recite mi kako u zvorniku, možete on to reći?
Molim?
Kako u zvorniku, jel Pejo otišao tam?
Pa šta znam, treba i tamo da ide, da
znam. Da. Aha.
Mora, on jadan stvarno, on najmanje ima vremena za sebe.
Da, znam to.
Ja ću to sve da
Dobro, ako se ja javim sa drugog telefona, onda ću samo pitati da li može ono da mi dobaci do ovde, da znamo u principu da li može, znate, a onda bi se trebalo dogovoriti. Tako, pozdravite ga, puno hvala.
Hvala i vama, čast mi što sam sam razgovarao.
Puno vam hvala.
Witness B129, are you able to recognize the voice of the man speaking?
It is Rus.
His full name was Vladimir Homa.
Vladimir Homa Rus. He was a major by rank. He was killed in 1993 at Čelići near Brčko. He was very close to the commander,
To whom Mrs. Plavsic was clearly seeking to speak. The reference to raising of the flag twice and the fact that Arkan would attend the raising of the flag identifies Rus as being where?
in Erdut. In Erdut, every morning the flag was raised, and in the evening it was lowered.
But elsewhere, was it possible, at other locations of the Tigers, was it possible to raise a flag, or was it only at Erdut?
Only in Erdut.
We can see the nature of the inquiries that Mrs. Plavsic was making. Are you able to assist one way or another with the goods that she's referring to when she says, I'll ask that you bring those goods?
I don't know anything about that.
The reference on the second page to Peo, who's that?
The reference is to Marko Page, also known as Peo. He was a general by rank in the Serbian Volunteer Guard, and he participated in operations in Bijeljina, Zvornik, and Brčko.
And finally, I think on this, I asked you whether you recognize the voice, but I must just check. Do you recognize the voice, or is it simply that you know the man Russ and from the context of the transcript can say who is speaking?
From the transcript, I can conclude that it is the Rus speaking, because I did not have occasion to meet Rus, but Arkan frequently spoke about him.
Well, I'm reminded by Ms. Wee that it's possible for you to follow the transcripts on the screen under the system if you wish to.
That intercept, of course, is subject to a ruling on admissibility.
Oh, yes. There then comes tab 6, which is 2 transcripts, transcripts of 2 intercepts. If we can play the first one. Yep.
Štab srpski dorovački kart, izvolite.
Dobro, kapitan Legija ovdje.
Halo?
Captain Legia speaking. I'm calling from Sarajevo.
Ćao!
Where have you been? Is 99 there?
Dede spava.
99 is sleeping. Having a little rest.
Spava malo odmara. Slušaj,
When will you get
slušam, nemam
up?
pojma.
I don't know.
Reci mi na kom si broju, vi treba
Give
se
me your
vraćate.
number. You should be returning. Yes.
Znam i to.
I know
Zove
that too.
Ljubinko nešto,
Ljubinka
kao
called
da vidi kako da se
to
vratite,
see how
uglavnom
you
treba
could
se
return.
vratite.
Basically, you have to return somehow. I know,
Eto,
that's why I'm
zaustavlja
calling.
tako.
I'm glad.
Baš mi je drago.
We feel like crying over
De,
it.
o,
Yeah.
crno. Šta kažeš?
Tell 99 that I
Kaži.
will call in 2 hours.
Da,
Sada znam da jedno 2 sata.
da će zvati za 2 sata.
That you will
Znači
call in
negde
2
oko 15
hours.
do 8.
So around 7:45.
Zovi, molim te, negde oko 7, 7 i 15. Ja mislim da ima oko pola 8 neke obaveze ovdje.
15:15. I
Neka
think he
slika
has
ili
something
nešto
to
tako.
attend to at 19:30 hours.
U
All
7
right.
sati ću zvati.
Are you all
Znaš.
okay?
Jeste svi okej? Sem?
Yes, apart
Oni
from
su na
2 men.
palama.
Again, Pale?
Dobro.
Yes.
Pozdrav mi Bojović.
Say hello to Bojović.
Ćao.
Bye.
Thank you very much. If we can just pause there. Are you able to recognize either or both of those voices?
Yes.
Namely?
Let me see. Captain Legia is Milorad Lukovic or Ulemek because in 1992 he had the rank of captain and I recognize his voice. 99 is the wartime code for Željko Ražnjatović Arkan, and the female voice is that of Snežana Kalinic, who was the personal secretary of Željko Ražnjatović Arkan. And she left the headquarters in March 1994. Ljubinko, the man that is mentioned as Ljubinko, is Ljubinko Jeftic, a general by rank in the Serbian Volunteer Guard.
So that on this intercept we have Captain Legia from Sarajevo seeking to contact Arkan, known as 99, through his secretary with the conversation we see.
Yes.
Second conversation, please.
Štab srpski dorovački kart, izvolite.
Da, kapitan Legija ovdje.
Evo sad ću ti zovem koordinat. Samo nastav.
Halo,
Poštovani gospodin Koranta.
reci Legija.
Samo da tebe pitam za ono što te Bojke znam.
Pa evo ne možemo da nađemo ove smradove nigde.
Well, we can't find
Dobro,
the
ne
stickers
samo
anywhere.
što sam
All
rekao da vam
right,
se
but since he
javimo.
told me to call you, yes.
Pa reci, ne možemo
Tell
uopšte,
him that
još
we
nismo
haven't
našli ove
yet
smradove za
found the
to.
stinkers for that.
Da.
All right.
Probat ću ja nešto
I'll
odavno.
try something
pa
from
odakle ako može, to bi
here.
bilo
It would
fino,
be
da.
good if they could do something from
A
there.
šta je
But
bilo
what
to,
was
šta je
it?
bilo to?
Ovo objasnio, Bojke?
Did Boyko explain things this morning? Yes.
Ne
That's
možemo
how it
nikako
is.
da
We cannot
tapkamo u mesto.
stand still.
Ne možemo ništa da uradimo, mislim.
There's
Ovo
nothing we
je
can
ratni
do.
profiteri.
This place is full
Ja
of
neki ratni profiteri, rekao
war
ono.
profiteers.
Ko kad bi sad
It's
recimo
as if
neko
someone
došli
went to
Beograd i
Belgrade now
na
and
bazi
went to
tamo rekao mu
Baja
ti se
and told
otišao,
him
tako i
you
on.
are this and you are that. That's how it is
Oni nas
here. Yes,
gledaju
yes.
koja se pali
They
s
look
neba.
at us now as if we had fallen from the sky.
Ima sad taj mladić je došao, sad i danas sam se svađao s tim gore.
Šta je bilo s Mladićem?
Pa to, znate ova korona se zaustavljena.
Da.
I tu na televiziji.
Ne, nisam, šta je bilo?
Ovo, zaustavili smo 7200 izbjeglica.
7,200 refugees.
I
We
ovi,
stopped them.
nismo zaustavili.
Da.
I ja sam predložio Mladiću sad da menja njih za onu kazarnu tamo.
For the barracks over
I oni
there.
kao, dobro,
They
zvao
said, all
Panića
right,
i
all
rekao
right. He called
Panić kao da se
Barnett
oni
and
puste.
Barnett said that they should be
A
released.
mi smo human
But
narod,
that we
ono.
were humane
Ja
people,
sam onda,
etc.
kad su oni
When
to
they
rekli,
said
meni onda
that,
rekao Mladić kao, dobro,
Mladić
to
said
ti
that I should see about it with
rekao?
my men.
To ja kao s mojim
What did he
ljudima da
say?
vidim. Rekao,
Ne čujete?
kao da ja to vidim sa mojim ljudima.
Da.
Ja sam mu
That I should
rekao,
see with
ja
my men. I told him,
ne mogu to vidjeti s mojim ljudima, ja sam vam uradio posao, to što se vi kao preko
and the
telefona,
fact
sa
that
njima
you are playing at
diplomatizujete, što su vas opet
diplomacy
zajebali,
with
to
them
nije moj
over the
posao.
phone, and they have
Ja sam
screwed you
otišao.
again. That's
I
not my
posle
job,
on
and
me
I
opet
left.
zvao kao, pa da
Later, he
porazgovaramo
called
ljudski,
me
da se ne
again
svađamo
saying we
među
should
nas,
have a
ovo ono.
civilized
Ja
discussion
sam onda
and
sve
should not
objasnio, a
quarrel.
opet oni to, oni
I then
ne vole
explained
nas
everything
stavljali,
to
ova
him,
komanda
but then
gore.
again, these people here,
Neće
this
nikada da
command up
prihvati
here,
to
they're not
poslu i tako.
registering us.
Da,
They
da.
refuse to
S njima ne mogu
accept
da svađam, neće više
who we
uhapsali
are and
gore.
what we are. I
Ne,
don't
rekao,
want to quarrel any
znate
longer.
da me uhapsali gore.
They will soon arrest me.
Pa ako je tako,
Well,
brate, onda
if
šta
that
imate
is
tu da
how it
tražite?
is, what are you doing there? They really are stinkers.
Sam probao,
I made thousands of suggestions and tried thousands of other ways to include these people
ali to
here.
ništa ne vredi, evo
But
sad
it
2
was no
dana smo
use.
stali sa svim
We
akcijama,
haven't been
neću
in
da
action
radim
for 2
akciju
days
i
now
da mi
because I
svaki
do
dan
not
ovde
want to
puno
go
želi
into
bez
action
veze, a
and
mi
lose
dalje
one
tapkamo u
man
večku,
every day
razumete?
for no reason,
I
and
to
we're
je
still
glupo.
at a standstill. It's terribly
Da,
stupid.
da.
Eto, pa ne znam, onda ima i
I
taj
don't
Karadžić
know.
gore i
This
oni su
Karadzic
svi
guy
dobakli
is
tamo
up
s tim
there too.
muslimanima.
They all embrace
Oni s
those
njima
Muslims.
pregovaraju, ja
They
sam
are
im platio
negotiating with
6200
them. I
ljudi tu.
captured
Rekao sam, kažite im,
7,200
svikni su
people for
Afrika.
them. I said,
Da
tell
su to
Fikret
ovi
Abdić too
Srbi
that
iz
they
ovih, i što
are
su
Serbs
pokrali
from
su to neki
these.
200 Srba.
They
I
cut the
kažu da
throats
su
of
to
about
preživjeli
200
Srbi i da
Serbs.
su ih
Tell
oni
them that these
zaustavili.
are the Serbs who
Da oni
survived and
traže
that
da
they
zbog
stopped
tog
them. That because of
planete,
that slaughter,
oni su
they are
zadržali
looking
taj konvoj
for
i da kažu
that they
da
stop
se
that
puste svi ti
convoy and
vojnici
are
iz
asking
Katarne.
for the release of all the
I oni su
soldiers
nešto
from the barracks.
pregovarali i opet su ih
They
oni zajebali.
negotiated and these people screwed them
Opa,
again.
jutro su trebali 8 sati da
Another
puste
betrayal then.
vojnike i
They
kako
should
krenu
have
krenu
released these
stakama i
soldiers
oni
at
juče
8 o'clock
neki
this
juče
morning, but
indijana
when the
koji
convoy
nisu
left the
glavni.
barracks, Yuka's
Neki
men,
Juka su glavni za to
there's
zeleno
someone called
beretke.
Yuka, some guy who is the leader of the Green Berets. He started shooting at them and they turned
I
back.
oni su se ovi naši
All of our
ukrali i
men
kao
were
dobro
afraid
skupiti, oni njih
and
stavljaju.
decided to let them
Ja sam
go.
danas jedan mladić odgovorio da zadrži taj konvoj, da se konvoj u našim rukama nema
Swing
nikakvog
Mladic
napada,
to
s njihove
retain the
strane.
convoy because for as long as the
Opet oni
convoy is in our
palamuju tu
hands, their
nešto.
side
Da,
will not
znaš,
attack.
jedan život
He
je njima
then
se svađa.
started blathering again. I haven't
Pa oni
got the
ovdje svi se
patience to
svađaju ko
quarrel
će da
with them
komande.
here. They all quarrel
A
about
niko
who will
neće
be in
da se
command.
svađaju
And
kako da
no one
naši
wants a
napravi taj
discussion
napad
on
i ta
how to
ofenziva da
attack
padne više do Sarajeva.
and launch an offensive to finally bring about the fall of Sarajevo.
Eto, i mi smo jako
I
razgovarali
have
sa
spoken
Šulcem i
to
sa
Schultz
Bojketom.
and Bajke.
I šta ja znam, ja mislim
And
da
I
je
think
najbolja
the best
solucija da se mi
solution
vratimo
Pa
tamo.
najbolje bi to bilo, ajde vidite, jel imate
best.
šanse odatle da uzmete helikopter?
Whether you can take a helicopter from there.
Ajde,
I'll
vidite,
try
ajde.
with this main gun. See what you can do. All right, bye, bye.
When you've dealt with this tape, we have to intercept. We've got to take a break. Tape has got to be changed.
Can you recognize both voices?
Your Honor, we need to break right now. I apologize.
Adjourn now, 20 minutes.
All rise, we will obey.